Hey everybody, this is Rydo and we're back to Ni no Kuni. Let's continue. So, we're gonna have to kind of run out of this place, looking for the glowing yellow in the overworld, and this may end up with us being forced into grinding a little bit more than we expect. We could skip one side quest, and that might and go down to the next city, but I really would like to get the ability to run just to speed up things. Here we go, Ollie boy. Now our adventure can really begin. We are like 7 hours into this game, and now the adventure is beginning. You even got yourself a proper wand and everything. I bet you're excited. I sure am. Alright. So, there's something over here that is oddly out of the way. It's not where we started the game. We started kind of in the middle of the field. And I guess there was a northwest island they were talking about to find a journal. I'm wondering about that too. I guess our first goal, though, is we've got to find these. We want to find as many of these and get resources. And I don't know if there's really much of a value in grinding out and fighting. Somebody's running seemingly in the opposite direction of me. Yeah, they're afraid of me now. I'm so overpowered. So I would have to go chase them down. And that's a decent system that we have seen before, where the RPG games try to balance things out a little bit and try and make things not super crazy. Here we are. Golden Grove, a quick stroll through here. We'll be out onto the other side into the desert in no time. Tidy. Jeepers Creeper, it looks like a giant mushrooms, but so different from the deep dark wood. You're not wrong, Ollie boy, and another type of woodland altogether this is. No offense to old tree face, but the soil here is just better. Proper fertile it is. The trees are weighed down with fruit and nuts all year round, and that's why they call it the Forest of Plenty. See? Forest of Plenty, huh? It's been a while since I dropped by. There's nostalgic. Full of fairies, this old place. Shall I give the boys a shout? Yes, please, Mr. Drippy. Boy, how do boys? Anybody about? It's me, Drippy. Nobody's home. What? No welcoming committee from the High Lord of Fairies? Something proper weird is going on, Mon. No fairies in town and none in the forest neither. What happened to all of them? Maybe we should go deeper into the forest. We might be able to find out more there. Well, since we're going that way anyways, let's just push through to Al Mamoon. Al Mamoon is the name of the city, when really it feels more like the name of a person. See what we can see, shall we? Okay, boy. I sure hope we get to meet some of your fairy friends, Mr. Drippy. Alright, well, I'm going to immediately turn around and leave, if I can. I forgot that star means that that's the main story. There are some winds. I wonder if these winds that we're seeing are supposed to play some role to something. Does feel like some people are still happy enough to attack me, so I'm not that overpowered. But you can definitely feel less gold, less XP than in the well. And you can definitely feel that the game doesn't want us to go too crazy grinding here. I think it would be a big mistake to just stay in this area and try for level 25 or level 50 and just try and grind in the first section. Like, if anything, it looks like we're getting diminishing returns. We went from 8 XP to 4 XP. It might just be a case that these guys run in whatever direction they're pointed in. It is a little weird, I would say, that we are chasing after a subquest in the overworld. Single hits killing. Now, we put different equipment on our mighty character, and it didn't do anything. Oh, that was one of the collectibles we need to do. We may need to just grind out, actually. This character here seems to be a unique character. Take on the Gruffian.
Let's do it.
Alright, let's see how easily this goes. Let's see. That didn't go as easily as it could have. Alright, we got plenty of health though, so we're not really in danger of dying here. That gave us a lot of XP and a decent amount of gold. That was the bounty hunt being complete. Okay. So, let's see. If we go over here to the journal, let's see. Looking for 2 plainswort flowers and 2 bottles of spring water. Horse Devil lives in the eastern part of the Rolling Hills, appears to be having some difficulty. We haven't started that one. The Procrastinator we already did, but they're marked new. I don't know why he would, like, what it takes to unmark them. Alright. So we're looking for the diary in the indicated location, northwest on an island in a stream that has 2 trees growing on it. And then this was the bounty hunt. Okay. So the creature just clipped through the mountain. Okay, I think I see a bit of a gold jingle. Maybe not. It's a little too easy to turn around and get a prompt there. I may just need to grind to get the resources for that other quest. at the very least, what you could do is we could look at each of these characters, and if we haven't seen a character in the overworld, if we haven't ever fought that, it probably is worth it to consider fighting it at least once. Even though it doesn't seem like there's a system yet, maybe the game will give us a system later on where we can fight people, and that the act of fighting people leads to potentially capturing them like a Pokemon. It's nowhere over here. What is that? Where did we just end up? We just found a secret location. Were there supposed to be secret locations? Everyone panic. Everything alright? So... we've obtained the Battler's Badge. This is some kind of boy, listen, forest very dangerous. Escape, run away. What's going on? Monsters everywhere. Rampage. Monsters destroying. That's terrible. Which monsters are these? Rhino boar. Big. We see 5. Dangerous, very dangerous. Escape, run away. To stay in forest. Protect forest. Okay. We'll take this quest. Just skip through the dialogue because I particularly don't want to have to read out dialogue of tribal people who are gonna speak in broken English. Okay, well, we're taking on a side quest in a forest. Is this what a rhino boar is? Yes.
Let's do it.
I guess the question will just come down to how much health do these things have? They don't have that much health. So this feels like this is very doable. Also, if I do this quest, I'll have more than enough stamps to finish out one stamp card. This does open up a issue, certainly, in that it may be beneficial to really look around and go inside every single forested area. That definitely would be a way to make more of an overworld. In fact, I'm kind of surprised I haven't seen this in more RPG games where every single forested area effectively is a sub area that gives you a different quest or gives you a spawn of more difficult enemies. These people's reactions to being snuck up to are it's not particularly slow. I would expect a little bit more time to at least get that first hit off. Usually in RPGs I've seen, if you sneak up on somebody and you have the advantage, you are allowed to take a full attack turn and actually hit the enemy. Guaranteed. Although I also have seen RPG games where you sneak up on somebody and you just attack them in the overworld and you don't go through all of that, this actions. And it's the same end sequence every time, just him saying Nito, which, I mean, it could definitely be worse. It could be a 10-second success animation, but could definitely have been more varied or just non-existent. might be one of those cases where saying victory on the screen with text is better than showing a win animation. And I know they're trying to target kids, but you filled the following task. Okay. So back into this area we go. It's telling us our main quest. Those Rydo boys won't be troubling anymore. This true, you strong? Blah 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 blah. Yeah, most of the text is gonna boil down to me just jumping through it and going blah blah blah. Alright. If you are looking at the game from the perspective, I'm gonna just walk in this forest now and see if this leads to a different area. Nope, it didn't. So that seems like that's not always going to be the case. That kind of makes sense. Let's see, bottled spring water. We need one more of those. If we're looking at the story from the perspective of this being the boy's experiences and Oliver's experiences and Oliver's imagination, he does seem to be kind of in a kind of maybe 1940s style time in Europe. Like, it doesn't feel like a modern day perspective, so I wouldn't be surprised if in Oliver's imagination, when he thinks Aboriginals, he would think that. Alright, we have enough flowers. We just need water. Here's the diary. Those guys just totally missed me. So, do we have 2 plains wart flowers and 2 bottles of spring water? Come over to the bottomless bag. What does this do? Made from sturdy material, this badge helps protect its wearer from enemies' blows. We'll have to figure out who to equip that to. Yes, we have 2 of this and 2 of this, which I think does make for us a good excuse to just run back to the city and turn in those cards. You can definitely see how this character moves slowly. Far too slowly in the overworld. And you can also see in the overworld how jumping wouldn't be that beneficial. It's just not a world built around jumping. But in the cities, jumping feels like it would be very beneficial. So there might be an argument on collecting it fairly quickly. I do think it is kind of weird how the monsters just kind of appear and disappear in this world. There's definitely something to be said about the scale of how everything looks here. It is a nice looking kind of big map, whereas the abridged RPG game with the cats was zoomed in maybe a little too much, and you could run around the entirety of that cat RPG game that I played recently that I can't ever remember the name of. like, you could run around the entirety of the world in less than 4 minutes in that game. This seems a little bit bigger, but it does seem a little too sparse as far as enemies. So I assume we'll have similar sized areas later on with more enemies around, or at least stronger enemies. I kind of assume it will get a little bit harder to. We didn't read his diary, by the way. Uh, we just got a giant's tooth, which that'll be helpful. Yeah, you probably will, even close to the end of the game, be still able to run away from enemies and avoid fights. Otherwise, that breaks the whole system. The audio's still glitching out. Right, so we should have enough then for 2 stamp cards to be fulfilled, because we also have the bounty hunt to turn in, which I think leaves us with actually very few quests still open. Turn in this bounty hunt. North of Golden Grove, the Rolling Hills Summerlands. It's one more bounty hunt underway. The fact that the audio cuts out like this clearly shows that they, whatever engine they programmed for or however they programmed it, did not have the idea of parallel audio channels built into it. And for as many kind of ridiculous things like hair technology and ray tracing, reflection technology, which are extra, certainly, they are extra things that are nice. It is shocking how many games I have seen, and this is a pretty modern game and a remastered version of a pretty modern game. It's just shocking how many people don't have in their engines different audio channels or good by default ways to fade music out and play a jingle over it. And then you get into awkward silences, certainly, as you're okay. So we have 2, which we could go with jackpot here. Additional restorative glimpse appear during battle. Foraging more fruitful. Or just allow you to run. Okay. So then it becomes a question, do we save? Or do we just take jumping? Let's just take jumping. These other merit awards don't seem like they're going to unlock unless we collect the other ones first. Let's see. No new errands in this area. And if we look at our journal, everything except for this has been done. Right. This guy is not hungry anymore, so we can increase his magical attack by 1. We can increase his magical defense by 1. And we can go ahead and give him attack. He seems to really love the chocolate. So, with your increased familiarity of a certain character, there is a whole system here where you could increase your familiarity, I guess, faster and better. Alright. We'll give him a giant's tooth. We have a wooden shield extra. We can give this guy more defense as a battler's badge. Or I could have taken the battler's badge. Probably better off in the hands of our fighter. We also have this well-worn sword that does +6. Can we equip that to something? Decreases the accuracy a little bit. Decreases it by 1 and decreases your magical attack by 2. But all I can use is wands. And all he can use is that. So we have to run the numbers here. +4 for losing 3. I guess in total, you're better off with this weapon. So now jumping is something we can do inside the city. So we would hit this point. We couldn't jump. Can we jump here? No. So jumping is useless as an ability. So, yeah. You're either going to pass through this door, or you're going to get some kind of spell. Get to that locked box. The map indicates that you're just gonna walk there. Alright. Is there anything else that we could jump to? Okay. Buy one of these. And then I'm just gonna buy like 10 of these. These menus are still awkward. Alright. I need more of that. And we'll just see if we can get attack and defense up. Well, this guy's here. We might as well just... See, he's not so into the attack foods. And it seems like there's only going to be one treat that increases anything. So I feel like the game itself is telling you you should try different treats for different types of characters. This guy needs defense and accuracy increased. Right, so we'll buy one more of these. And then let's see, probably about 3 of these would be the right ones. But we'll have to do some fighting. So you can't jump over that. And you have to kind of wind up if you're going to jump, which really does make it feel like you're not going to be able to jump over anything. Yeah. It feels like this whole game is designed in such a way that you won't even be able to jump on simple flower beds, even. So that was a waste. Like, jumping is absolutely useless. The game did tell me that, so that's my own fault. Let's see. Fireball does nothing. Can't burn the plants out of the way. I've definitely learned a lesson. Mommy, I'm really hungry. Finally. Finally the girl's not talking about having to pee. Okay. So now that we are running, does it feel like we're actually moving any with any increased speed? I kind of am leaning towards not really. It does seem to be about the same speed. And we can chase after any speck of gold we might see, but a lot of times the specks of golds are going to just be brown dirt patches. That's the first time we've gotten the gold glyph, but we got it too late. Yeah, it's going to be fairly diminishing returns if we chase after grinding in this area. Which one is it? This guy?
Let's do it. Here goes.
Yeah, one hit kills. We've got our guy strong enough now, so probably wouldn't hurt to actually focus him more on defense. That wasn't the guy we were fighting. Guess this is the guy we're fighting. Easy enough to make that mistake, certainly.
Let's go.
Kind of strong.
We did it!
The hope here, I guess, would be that you could claim a bunch of bounties in the next area and not end up having to like go back and forth. Otherwise, the whole bounty system is going to be very dependent on just how many times am I going to have to enter a city and then leave and then come back. And that could get very repetitive very quickly. It certainly will be a question about like this new dungeon path area. This may be, we may be overpowered for it, or it may be balanced to our level, and we may see really difficult characters. It would be a little confusing for a kid's game if this was like level 10 characters and we were fighting level 2 or 3 characters in the previous area. But that wouldn't be super crazy for an RPG to do, to have the player. Interesting. The map is saying the map feels in the like oriented wrong. We haven't fought this before, so we might as well fight it once.
Let's go!
Like, it doesn't feel like it keeps the map at a true north. Yep, these guys are stronger by far. So doing the little bit of grinding we have done was worth it. And yeah, the map points us north. Says it's pointing north always, but doesn't quite feel like it's always pointing north. Because we're looking in a different direction now. Let's just fight everything once.
We can do this!
This doesn't feel like these are evolved versions of creatures we've already run into. They feel like just new creatures. And I imagine there's only so much of that we can really experience before this game is going to get really crazy. Although we kind of know this game is going to get a little crazy anyways, because it's telling us that there's potentially 300 or 400 creatures in this game.
We can do this!
I think that probably also highlights one of the problems that you just generically will have with RPG games, is that there's this desire specifically after Pokemon to create a ridiculous amount of characters, but that sort of existed in different ways anyways, because I don't like here that you have to just pick a side and go in a direction. Like even some of the Digimon games were already kind of crazy with the amount of characters they were trying to make and have. Imagine if I was more familiar with even earlier games like Final Fantasy 1, 2, or 3, they'd probably have a fairly large amount of monsters. 2, it definitely comes from the idea that in the old days where Final Fantasy 1 probably is less than 10 megabytes of space, Final Fantasy 2 had to stand out against Final Fantasy 1, so they would add 50 more characters, even if they were very similar characters and just static, flat 2D images of characters or little 8-bit sprites of characters. And that momentum has carried itself through to modern day, where you would have to make 3D models of characters, and that's kind of insane. Or just the big numbers is kind of insane anyways. Even a game like Super Mario Brothers, would you have 8 times 4 levels in a game like Super Mario Brothers in a modern time, or would it make a little bit more sense to potentially have 4 worlds and have those 4 worlds be bigger? So he's telling me to jump on the things. But when I press forward to jump here, to get up there, that's not pressing the B button to jump. Let's go check this direction then. Oh. Yeah, there's gotta be some kind of levitate spell. Yeah. There's gotta be some kind of levitate spell. Or unless it's rejuvenate. Nope. So green treasure chests are just going to be a thing for a while. We're going to see them, and either we're going to be able to levitate the chests or levitate ourselves towards the chest. This was the right direction. Of course, then we once again are split and going in 2 different directions. It wouldn't be particularly fair to want a game where you only fought one character each time, and thus every character is just its own boss. Although there might be a way to do that where you only see a character once, and then let's see. Yeah, if it's cycled in a weird way, so that you are always seeing a relatively new character, and it never got stale, that might be interesting. If it created a pool of characters and randomized the order of those characters, of the possible characters you could see. Of course, you can't really do that because it would take up so much video RAM. There's a very specific reason why most of these RPG games have different areas, and in different areas are different kinds of creatures. And it's not just because of a thematic reason, it's because you couldn't have all the characters' textures loaded in at the same time. It would create a slower loading sequence than this is. And some of that transition here probably is a loading sequence. You do, I guess, get into something closer to like a Dark Souls type game, I guess, if every character was unique and special, and that is very popular, so maybe that is the future trend that RPG makers should look towards. I don't know though if JRPG makers, particularly ones that are trying to make games that are somewhat kid friendly, would go in that direction. Let's go up here. This is really just moving me around in a lot of different directions. You have to expect to see a Cheshire cat appear at any point. And I wouldn't be surprised if that's kind of exactly what happens. This pig character wants to fight me. So we'll run around and sneak up on him.
Let's go. Here goes.
I'm gonna try to get to the point where I use cut loose on groups of people as a way of speeding up the process. Although his cut loose attack is not actually that useful, we definitely are building him up in such a way to be more of a physical attacker. And then we'll have to decide whether or not we need a different character for a magical attacker.
Come on.
What typically happens in a lot of these cases is you have somebody that has a ranged attack, and just being able to attack with a ranged attack is so much better than getting up close and personal, since most other characters don't have ranged attacks. And that is somewhat already the case with Oliver, because his fireball spells clearly can attack from a distance, leaving Oliver safe. But I wouldn't really keep him as the safest of the characters. Ollie boy, it's a blinking robot. Looks like it's been lying here for a while, like. Well, it's not going to help us get through the forest, but let's just leave it for now, ain't it? No, let's try the rejuvenate spell. Nothing happens. Okay. Beast fangs. It's funny that this is a fantasy game and we're now getting robots involved. Let's see. I guess I can put on the other giant's tooth. We definitely are just going to end up coming back. That's getting very, very obvious. This is a good one to potentially experiment with and just see what our attack would be like. It's not good. Yep. Yeah, I have a hard time believing you would ever want to send Oliver into the fight unless you're willing to cast a whole bunch of spells. So maybe in boss fights, probably never in any other kind of fight. Which the game might as well have just forced that upon you and said when bosses fight, you're gonna have to get involved yourself, but don't bother getting involved in any of the other fights. Instead of this stamina system, which more than likely you'll never even remember that there is a stamina system for your familiars. I think it is also worth mentioning that just to make a story like this appeal to the West, they really have to bend over backwards to take the general idea of somebody being a wizard and having familiars and try their very best to make it look nothing like a wizard or a witch would look like in, say, satanic or early Christian imagery. Um, we're not seeing black cats. We're not seeing uh, weird, dark imagery. We're seeing bright, colorful imagery instead, as far as the outfits and the cloaks. It's definitely trying to be very Harry Potter-esque, and even Harry Potter-esque was still, Harry Potter movies and books were still boycotted by particularly conservative Christians. This would be the right phrase to use there. Whereas if you left a Japanese person to their own decisions, they probably would lean more into the witch and witchcraft imagery. You can see that in Kiki's delivery service, because in Kiki's delivery service, it is a little girl that is a witch, and she does have a pointy hat and a long flowing dress and a broomstick that she flies on. And I wouldn't be surprised if Ghibli, when they release Kiki's Delivery Service, which is a beloved Ghibli anime, got some pushback for her being even that much. She did have a cat familiar too, to the point where now you have Nino Kuni going in the more wizard direction and less silly direction. Like in Japanese, instead of being called familiars, these are probably would be called like straight up oni or demons, or monsters even. And our little character does have horns, but he's drawn so cutesy. Like you really wouldn't think of him as this is a baby demon you're controlling as a familiar. This path goes too long. We definitely are having that problem that happens fairly often with JRPGs and RPGs, is in that there is a path, there is a split in the path, and there's no way to know which way is the right way. And so you'll end up going one direction, and then you'll end up turning around. Then you'll end up going a different direction, and you'll end up turning around. There's no jumping on that mushroom. We have to look for another way around. So this mushroom seems to say no for some reason. Maybe because it's a smaller cap. Pokemon certainly goes in a very different direction, because as an RPG, because it creates its own world, and I think there is definitely arguments around the idea of not leaning on something that's established so that you can own the narrative and own the world building yourself. But then there is also certainly an ease around leaning on the established. Like Harry Potter would be a hard story to tell if Harry Potter was in some completely different world that wasn't connected to the real world, and there was magic, but it was its completely different type of magic. There was a sci-fi show called The Magicians that basically did that, and looks like we're going to bring life back to this forest and create some interconnecting paths. Now, The Magicians also wasn't really attempting to be kid-friendly by any means. They're drastically trying not to be kid friendly. Let's see. Harbor Frost Harpoon. Let's see if we can equip that on somebody. Nope. So we have now something that's a spear that we can't even equip to anything. So we'll have to get another familiar before we can do anything with that. This map is getting wilder and crazier. It looks like there's a full item that way and a full item this way. So this is almost a full overworld except for in narrow corridors. We have a different kind of tree. We'll just have to approach and see what's going on here. Jeepers, what is that? Tidy, it's a familiar egg. So, familiars hatch from eggs? I thought they were summoned or created from magic. Interesting. Are we now going to need to find multiple places where familiar eggs would be? I doubt they'd all be in the middle of a forest to get familiars. How many familiars are we going to really end up with? Oh, it would be interesting if actually there were only about 9 that you actually can play with and the rest are just all enemy variants. I mean, on a certain level, Pokemon could work if you just played with Pikachu the whole time. Pokemon Yellow kind of proves that. Um, a familiar egg, but didn't you tell me familiars come from people's hearts? That they do, my lad. But not only from there, familiars can be born from whatever. There's a plenty of what you might call life force. See? The sky, the sea, the forest, the field, it doesn't matter where it is, Ollie boy. When enough life force builds up, out they pop. In fact, they can even be born from everyday objects if they've been used long enough and loved hard enough. I know, mad, ain't it? And see, that is not a description of a familiar. That is the description of, I believe they're called yokai in Japanese, where umbrellas, if you use them long enough and love them hard enough, can gain their own spirit from, and this is kind of like based on Shintoism, I believe, not Buddhism. It's so hard to tell which beliefs for Japanese comes from Shintoism, Buddhism, or just general myth. So I would assume with that description that familiars really are being called yokai in Japanese, and the localizers are translating it to familiars, which doesn't change too much still. It's just showing a Japanese influence, trying to tell a more global story as best as they can and not succeeding particularly well at it. In a lot of ways, this is the opposite of what I think Japanese game developers should do. They should probably lean into things that they understand and are familiar with. Ghibli definitely doesn't try to do that very often for some of his movies by setting so many of his movies in European like countries. Uh, whereas his most popular movie, I would have to assume, is still um, well, it may be Spirited Away now, but it used to be the one with the cat bus, My Neighbor Totoro. My Neighbor Totoro is very heavily influenced by Japanese myth and was extremely popular. Spirited Away, also very heavily inspired by Japanese myth. Um, so, yeah, I just think you get better stories that way. You definitely get better stories when Japanese people try to tell things, stories based on what they're familiar with, particularly when it isn't a Ghibli movie. Um, if you look at like some of the weird Wolverine animes, for instance, that those come off very weird to somebody who's like a comic book fan. Moving on, although I think the Wolverine anime probably is still a great thing to check out every now and then, unless you're just a huge comic book fanboy. Then you're probably not gonna like it so much. Wow, life force sounds powerful. So this egg is made from the life force built up here in the forest, huh? There's there's quick you are. Life force is mysterious and potent energy filled with wonder. I'm surprised this isn't voice acted because that really gives it a feeling like this dialogue is just not that important when it feels like it should be important. But the results ain't always so magical. Sometimes instead of a friendly familiars, wild and vicious beasties are born instead. So I guess that explains where all the monsters everywhere have been coming from. Um, would almost explain the monsters magically disappearing too. You mean the creatures that are always attacking us? The very same. And the only way to teach them not to go around attacking people is to fight back, ain't it? I don't know if that's the right message to send to kids. Don't look so worried, man. We don't kill the poor things, we just send them somewhere where they can't bother us for a while. Okay, again, I feel like Drippy is just straight up lying to Oliver and you are killing him. Wonder what kind of creature will come out of this egg. I can't wait to see it hatch. Well, you'll be waiting a while, Ollie boy. Look at the bits around the edge of the tree, all withered. They are. Seems like the forest life force has taken a turn for the sparse. Must this that must be why the fairies have all cleared out too. Sorry, but if things stay the way they are, the egg ain't hatching anytime soon. Gee, that's so sad. There must be something we can do, Mr. Trippy. Indeed, there is indeed. And it's right here in your hand. Do I have a spell it out? All you have to do is cast the spell that can unwither the withered bits, restore them to their former glory, if you know what I mean. Finally, we're going to use restoration. Sure, Mr. Drippy, let me see. A spell that can restore withered branches to how they used to be. This talk is so much like like, it is written in such a way that it feels like a old cartoon you would expect from like the 1950s or 1960s. Um, or even one of those old puppet live action shows. Which that might be Ghibli's influence too. He is a particularly old person, so. But you just wouldn't see a kind of ignorant young kid as the main protagonist in most stories being written like an ignorant young kid and having to talk things out and talk to a character like Mr. Drippy to figure out how things are supposed to be done. Hmm. Um, it feels very weird, to say the least. Tidy, look, older boy, it's hatching. Witness the miracle of new life. Jeepers creepers, shall we help? Shall we help or something? Hmm. Neato, it hatched. We did it, Mr. Drippy. Oh, there's beautiful. There's nothing like a good hatching to get me welling up. Hee, stop it, it tickles. I think he likes you. He's cute. Okay, little one. We have to go now. Enjoy your life here in the forest, won't you? You ain't taking them with you, Ollie boy? He's only just hatched, Mr. Drippy. I can't let him come with us. It's too dangerous. Yeah, you got a point, I suppose. Fair enough. Righto, Lily. Look after yourself, eh? Bye for now. Goodbye and take care. Hmm. Is that seriously what we're gonna do? Is just leave him? Who? Does the spell Spirit Medium? What's interesting, by the way, Rejuvenate Spirit Medium costs 5. I have 40 MP. I press it, it says nothing happens, it doesn't use any magic power. Okay. So we're just leaving him. Feels like he would have gotten mad for me not taking him and attacked me, or he would have just attacked me. Seems like I've oddly set myself up for some engagement later. Like, clearly that was something they wanted to have happen.
Let's do it. Here goes.
Our guy is so strong. It's not like we really need another familiar. We will probably eventually need another familiar. And every XP you get now may be a bit annoying because that's going to feel like XP you could have gotten then, gotten with this new familiar who you have to assume will join you fairly quickly.
Let's go. Here goes.
Yeah. We want to basically see Drippy go silent. I think that would speed up this game so much in the cutscenes if Drippy just stopped talking and Oliver just either knew what was happening and what was going on and could just say, alright, I understand what's happening here. I don't have to be the naive boy anymore. I don't need the little mascot character to explain things. Pokemon, I think, did that fairly well, and I'm making a lot of comparisons to Pokemon. I think it's a fair comparison, more than you might originally think. Pokemon is a Japanese RPG. It's just slightly different looking. But Pikachu, for instance, just says Pikachu, says his name. He doesn't explain things to Ash Ketchum. If Ash Ketchum needs something explained to him, he usually has to seek out an adult or one of the professors to explain things to him, and they keep those encounters brief and more concise. Well, look who it is. It's the little Lee from before. How did you do, Young'um? Did he follow us? Looks like he wants us to follow him now. Is there something he wants to show us? Wonder maybe he's found some of my fairy buddies, eh? Speaking of fairies, he looks a lot more like I imagined a fairy would look like than you do, Mr. Drippy. Oh, he does he? Well, that just shows what you know, doesn't it? The cheek. See, that's a great example of some dialogue that just didn't need to really happen. And I'm chasing the guy, and they didn't program it so that the guy didn't actively let's try Frostbite. That's a spell we haven't done that yet. Fireball does more damage. At least on that guy it did. And it uses less magic power. Yeah, you could have made a cutscene, or you could have opted to not spawn enemies next to me. And yet, this is the second time the game has actively forced you into extra battles. And that whole cancel idea, I probably am canceling some of the attacks of the other people, but it's not really showing that happening so much. Feels like a canceled or an exclamation point appearing above the head of somebody's attack who's been canceled might be useful. Yeah, I'd go with an exclamation point. Or even a clang sound effect. Although a clang sound effect might not be as obvious as to what it means. This looks kind of familiar. Of course it does, you plonker. It's a page from the Wizard's Companion. And it's finders keepers around these parts. That's the law of the jungle or forest. You know what I mean? Just grab it. Neato. So we now have something called Quick and Grow. Thanks for showing us the way. We are just not getting any voice lines of dialogue nowadays. What's that? He's saying he reckons he could be useful to you, Ollie boy. Wants to tag along on our journey, he does. But he's just a kid, it's too dangerous. Ah, cheeky little so-and-so. Look who's talking, he says. He means you're just a kid yourself, ain't it? And he's got a point. He really said that, but don't fret, Ollie boy. Creatures like him were born to be familiars, and traveling around with wizards like yourself is what familiars do, ain't it? Gee, I guess. Okay, you can come with us. You better give the little fellow a name then. That'll seal the deal. Make you officially his master, like. Sid. As good a name as any. We're gonna see a localization away from phrases like master. There's been a very big push in the past 5 or 6 years in IT and in pretty much every field to stop using the phrases of master, even if it has long since been the case where very few IT phrases use the opposite of master, which would be slave. But like they've changed blacklist to block list, whitelist to allow list, master to usually server, and then client for slave. Although in a lot of cases they're labeling things as servers when they really aren't servers. And there are a lot of scenarios in technology where something might be a server and a client, and it might be more of a peer-to-peer communication scheme, and it might make more sense to use phrases like host. But certainly the word master is very much a Japanese mentality. Like in Japanese, there definitely are things that would be accurately described as labeling somebody as a master. And so that it'll be the localizers definitely to get away from that. Although I wouldn't be surprised if video games are kind of slow to the party to adopt new terminology too. We saw a cutscene in the last recording of the Dark Djinn, and they were hiding his face. And I didn't mention that or make any note on that, but as I thought about it more, there really is no reason why you would be hiding the Dark Djinn's face in the cutscene, unless the big reveal is going to be that the Dark Djinn is either the father or the mother, and thus they would look facially in features too much like the father or mother of Oliver. I'm assuming it's the father, unless they are going to go with a more simplistic reveal that the Dark Djinn is just a human, which they could do that, but they don't really need to hide his face to do that. That's 3 hold familiars you've got now, ain't it, Ollie boy? And look at that. This one can evade attacks and all. Evade. Is that some kind of trick? Yeah, I suppose you could call it that. It's like defending, only it doesn't take any damage. The only thing is, it's proper quick, so you have to be a bit nifty with your timing. But then you're getting pretty tasty at the old fighting lark, ain't you? Man, this is way too much jargon. In fact, I might as well let you in on another little trick of the trade while we're here. Neato, what is it? Well, What it is if you do an attack at the exact moment an enemy attacks you, you'll hit back with what's known as a counterattack. And if that works, your enemy will be so stunned they'll just sit there and let you whack on them even more. Tidy, eh? You can tell when the perfect timing to a counterattack is because a little attack bubble down in the corner will flash blue. Sounds a little bit complicated, but I'll do my best, Mr. Drippy. Yeah, the game is effectively just apologizing for being an RPG. Yeah. So this guy is at level 1, this guy's at level 10, this guy's at level 10. So the XP balanced out, arguably too easily the XP balanced out. We can go ahead and give him a spear to increase his attack fairly much. But yeah, you can see level 1 needs 6 XP, whereas level 10 needs 171 XP to go to level 11. Yep. I don't know if there's really going to be a way to ever really balance it out so much. Now that we have 3 familiars, there really is no option but to get another character. And at most there will be 4 characters in your party. Do we have any treats? Nope. Where are we going now? Back down this way. What is this quick growth do? Speeds the growth of plants but shortens their lives. Okay. So I think I understand what that's gonna do.
We can do this.
Of course, it is kind of a bit of a guilt trip. Because we're gonna have to open some shortcut paths using those spells, and that's gonna shorten the life of those mushrooms. Although mushrooms' life is pretty short anyways. Many mushrooms spring up overnight and then are dead by the time it's noon. And there's spore, or their mushroom caps above the surface sprout up and disappear. The spores themselves and the roots may still be alive. I guess I should applaud this game for not going super educational. That could get fairly annoying if the game started to give us a whole paragraph on mushrooms and talking about mushrooms. I could certainly go down that path and talk about mushrooms because they are kind of fascinating. But actually I don't really have that much to say about them, but they are interesting to say the least. But they're not relevant to the story that's trying to be told here, and the story that's trying to be told here is a pretty thin one for a JRPG. Yeah, a lot of people in the past, and sometimes rightfully so, have complained about Japanese RPGs being convoluted and overly complicated. But I think there is probably some reasoning behind that makes sense too. Because to balance out the large amount of grinding and fighting you're going to do, you would want to feel like there's some kind of story. Now, if I cast a spell, that would only do one.
We're trapped.
Okay, we're trapped, apparently. So we can't run away. Alright, we gotta spell this. I'm about to die, and this would be the absolute worst time to die. It really isn't a great time to die, but we've done so much and we haven't saved. Can we save? No, because we're effectively in a dungeon. The game really is going to punish you, though, if you don't run towards fights.
Come on.
Although it kind of punishes you if you run towards fights also, because then you have to spend the extra effort. It's probably a mistake to have the blue shield around the character just kind of always glowing. I don't think that's because of some item or something that I have on him. I think that's just the default state.
Watch this.
We've already fought everything in this area at least once. Well, that felt like a counterattack. Maybe we couldn't have done counterattacks until this point. It would be kind of funny if you were fighting some of the two previous bosses. Also feels like we're now getting ingredients where we weren't really getting that before. Alright. Okay. Quick growth, nothing happens. Quick growth, nothing happens. Seems like you have to walk in specific spots to fully map out the whole area. Yeah. And getting
We can do this.
the ability to run has not proven to be useful. Yeah, it's totally not worth fighting. Maybe now it would be worth it to attack him, but I don't even know if it was worth it then. Take note, though, that while we're doing all of this, we are forgetting about the whole idea of, like, the side quests in the overworld. We're forgetting about getting pieces of heart. We're forgetting about just, like, the main story and the main part of the experience that that
Watch
you
this.
would probably want to remember more of. Um, hmm. Get as much orbs to regain our health. Yeah. And you can certainly have that problem in any kind of game, but RPGs, I think, have that problem a lot more often than anything else, where there is a over abundance of mechanics and systems, and it just becomes too much, and it's just too delicate a balance, certainly, to try and have multiple systems in a game or multiple elements in a game. In a lot of ways, that's the same problem with having 300 Pokemon. Is nobody realistically in a Pokemon game collects all 300 Pokemon and then actually plays with all 300 Pokemon. You, at best, collect the 300 Pokemon and then use 25 of them. That's one of the advantages, I think, of something like Pokemon Snap, is that your goal is not to capture really any Pokemon at all in Pokemon Snap. You don't have to fight them, you don't have to care for them, raise them, and have them grow up and fight other Pokemon. Your only goal is to snap the best picture you can in Pokemon Snap. Particularly new Pokemon Snap is, I think, way better than the original game. You're just trying to snap the best picture of them as possible in their natural habitat, and you do very little to annoy or disturb them outside of their natural habitat. There's a little bit you do, even in new Pokemon, that you play a whistle and you throw apples at them to feed them. But that's pretty much all you do to them. This is too big of an area for a map that can't zoom out. What this limits me to assume is that the biggest dungeon in the entire game is going to be about this big, and that's it. So that would be fine and all if it weren't for the fact that can't get that yet. Yeah. To make up for smaller dungeons, it feels like what they're going to do is make you end up fighting the larger groups of people and just crowd the whole environments. I assume we're going to have a boss fight since that was a save spot, but maybe not. That may just be the exit. We kind of expect a boss fight. Look, Mr. Drippy, it's a fountain. Is it a fountain? I feel like maybe you would call that a spring. Fountains are man-made. Otherwise, you'd call them waterfalls or springs. So I think that's just mistranslated. But it's all dried up. Dearie, dearie me, this ain't too pretty, is it? But now we know what the problem is, at least we do. Well, this is the spring of life, ain't it? It's what puts the plenty in the forest of plenty. The reason the fairies have scarped in the tree of that familiar egg was in all withered is because the spring here has run dry. All that of all the low moves, who would have done something like this? Proper despicable it is. Uh-oh. What's wrong, Mr. Drippy? I got a feeling in my lantern that the culprit is about to appear. He is? Trust me, Mun. This is how these things always happen. Interesting that there's a leaf right in front of the screen.
See?
The falling leaf animation's nice and all, but I don't know if there's really a need for it. Although I doubt this game is pushing the graphics of even a Nintendo Switch that much. We're finally back to some voice acted sections, and all we got was Jeepers. Alright. Alright. Cut loose does seem to be a good one to use. Doing 20 damage. Okay. This guy seems fairly weak. I'm kind of out of energy, I think, though. Let's see. Alright. Spell. Frostbite. Spell. Fireball. Some of these attacks definitely do not have... Why am I attacking this guy? This is going to be a problem. I don't have enough magic to attack this guy. Do we have enough magic for cut loose? Yes, but we don't have enough attack. Go wild. Wow, Go Wild is going to potentially win here if... I got a bad feeling about this other boy. He looks like he's going flipping ballistic. Put up your guard. Arg. Okay. So, return to the title screen so we don't lose a massive amount of gold. And then continue. It's definitely not a interesting enough title screen to have to return to it so much. You really should just say return to the next checkpoint. before we go, let's see, are we at the maximum we could possibly do? Or is there possibly some food we could feed this guy? Let's not give a magical defense to this one. That didn't help us much. Alright, we got nothing. So this is just gonna get... This is gonna just get complicated. We need to defend when he's winding up, and you need to keep an eye on him more. Like, it does create a weird position, certainly, where your timing has to be kind of impeccable. And you have to really pay attention to what the other guy is doing more than what your character is doing. Go wild. And having potentially like what you don't want to have here happen here is the one character drains your health by a huge amount. I'm gonna bring this guy out and defend. Yeah. Oh, I know. Hold on a sec, Ollie boy. Is he gonna give the shield? Take this, you big bully. Tidy, now's your chance, man. Right. While he's stunned. I guess I should have just attacked. It's weird that Ollie or Drippy would help you in the fight. And so you're probably going to level up here, so running around and getting all the health, while it feels like it's something you'd want to do, probably won't matter too much. Actually, it did matter. Now we have the Spirit of the Glade, which it looks like we're going to get one spirit for each forest at least. We've also obtained a page describing the Gladiator. He's just off running away again. Thank goodness that horrible creature is gone. That wasn't just any old creature, Ollie boy. That was the guardian of this here forest. Guardian? You mean like the guardian of the woods? That I do. It's like I said, ain't it? Life force can make things pop up all over the place. In this place like this forest, the desire of the inhabitants to protect their home gave birth to a massive guardian beasties. Beasties like that, the one you fought over there in the deep dark wood, and the lad we just met. I don't know if you noticed, but his eyes were proper funny. Do you think Shadar? I wouldn't be surprised if he had his hand in this sordid little affair. Drying up a spring is just a kind of low-down trick he'd play. Knickers. Well, the guardian is back to his old self, but what are we going to do about the spring of life, I've been thinking about that, Mr. Drippy. We healed the tree egg with a spell, didn't we? Could we maybe use the same spell to restore the spring of life? That's clever of you, Ollie boy. Reckon some of my brains must be rubbing off on you. Give it a try, my lad. Alright, Mr. Drippy, I sure hope it works. First thing to do, though, would be to heal touch yourself a couple times. Ooh, actually that might have been a mistake, because now rejuvenate, well, fortunately rejuvenate didn't cost any magic power. Oh, that's water. I couldn't even tell what that was supposed to be. Again, this is a spring, not a fountain. So this is a real spring of life. It's so pretty. It is indeed. Now the guardian and the spring are back to their normal selves. The fairies won't be far behind, tidy. Neato, I sure hope we can make some fairies next time we're here. Me too, Ollie boy, me too. Right, to Al Mamoon. Yes, sir. Purity at the heart of the spring of life has unlocked a story in the Wizard's Companion. Which, yeah, I really question how many people would read these extra stories, which, this is the Shepherd Boy subchapter, The Lazy Son. Imagine some people would read it, but I imagine kids would be the least likely to read it. Right. So this is just going to be marked as the Spring of Life in the map. And then we go this direction. And we need to find a good place to save and call it an episode. Which I think we can just save here. So that is fine. We were at like chapter 14 last recording. Now we've made it all the way to chapter 16. We have done some quests, but clearly there's a lot more to do. A lot more bounty hunts to do. I suspect bounty hunts start at somewhere around 80 and errands end at 80. Wouldn't be surprised if Note from the Hills is actually the very last quest. Let's see. We could have eaten provisions. We're not getting a ton of items. And we don't seem like we have the ability to use ingredients and cook yet. We still don't have an ability to use these tickets. We don't seem to have an ability to use these spirits. But that's going to probably play a role. It's probably not worth your time to organize things. The game says we've been playing for 8 hours and 8.5 hours. Which is a little off, but not that off. This guy learned new tricks, so we need to decide whether we want something that would heal for magic or do damage for magic. I think doing damage for magic is probably better. It doesn't quite make sense that one of your familiars would heal for magic when you can just heal for magic yourself. It would make sense if this guy became super powerful and then you didn't want to switch out and you were just being lazy, but that's about the only time it makes sense. That feels like treats should drop a lot more. We've not gotten a single new life lesson as far as creatures in our little Pokedex. We are going up by 2 numbers for each guardian, which means we're probably going to fight each of these characters twice. And we are filling out all the other characters that we have fought or defeated. And we're not going to run into these guys quite that often enough to think that if you defeat them, say, 10 times, you would then be able to turn them into your familiars. We got one more dangerous place. Our progress report went from about 11% in the Wizard's Companion to 13%. Creature Compendium completion went from about 4% to 7%. So we know there's not that much in this game. Tasks completed is up to 6%. And then as far as creatures, it's kind of impossible to know. Like, you would have to find your character to see where they would evolve up to. There's no way to sort things. So somewhere around here is that new fairy creature that we just unlocked. But you would just have to kind of scroll around till you found it. Or flip through it. Although I guess in a real book you also would have to flip through the pages to find the thing you're looking for. That's why there needed to be a glossary or an index. Photo glossary, probably. Yeah, I can't for certain point out where the character we just got is. And that should have been fairly easy. Like, you would think it would be a fairy type creature. You'd think it would be in this group. But it's seemingly not. Weird. Well, ignoring that, if we look at all pages, we can see we're slowly, very, very slowly revealing everything. Seems like there's a lot that's going to be hidden at the front here as far as spells. So there's almost certainly going to be too many spells that you use only a couple times. And then there's going to be a lot here as far as the 12 Tales of Wonder and just stories, side dialogue. A lot of these collectibles in this single book would have been their own separate thing. That there would have been a sub-menu for spells and magic and a sub-menu for alchemy and equipment and bestiaries and provisions. And that there could easily have been 9 separate elements. And instead they've all squeezed it down to just the Wizard's Companion, which might be somewhat beneficial. We have plenty of gold. I don't fully understand, though, this screen. It feels like there's got to be some box in the middle at some point that's going to let you do something different. Because we know kind of at the bottom we're going to have 3 or 4 companions, and we'll see those companions and their familiars. And that'll take up the bottom row. And it's possible we'll get some other kinds of currency or collectible that might take up the right half of the screen, because you see gold and time there. But just kind of an empty middle doesn't make a lot of sense. Sure, you get to see the background and a stylized picture of where you are, but that's about that. Alright. Anyways, these recordings are getting excessive in length. I wanted them to be an hour and 30 minutes, and they're slowly getting longer and longer. So that's going to be it for this recording. As always, I ask you to like, share, subscribe, comment, and watch every second of my videos. If you want to friend or follow me on any social media sites, there's a whole bunch of links down below. Thank you for watching. Have a good evening.